This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program?
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Let's jump right into it, shall we?
We should.
How is the landscape of entertainment changing with the advent of more interactivity with video games, 3D applications in film, more home advances with home entertainment systems being able to offer the 3D experience, whether it be through watching movies, TV, sporting events, playing video games? How is that going to change things? How is that going to make the user either more a part of something, or is it going to essentially create a new form of entertainment for people? You know, will people start to feel that they are immersed in more of an experience, or will they start to pull away? Good question.
Well, I wonder, because you have games like World of Warcraft, I think it is, right, where people get so into it that they don't even want to be in real life anymore, right? Isn't that the game?
Yeah.
And that I could see that being, yeah, if people wanted to, they could go to that extreme and completely negate their entire life and just be in the game.
Well, people already do that. Like, there's people who seriously like live and do nothing but play Warcraft. Like, they don't even like leave their homes. Like, that's all they do. They play that game and like live in their parents' basement until they're 50 years old.
They game hardcore. When I used to work on PCs, laptops, and desktops, I would go in and replace motherboards that had burnt out GPUs and video cards all the time for people that would essentially game for 8 to 10 hours a day. And then I also met a kid one time who he was what they called a seeder, where he would build up characters for people and then sell them on eBay. He would seed people with characters. So, like, let's say you didn't have the time to play, right? But you wanted to play. You wanted to play with a
you want to have like
exactly. You want to have character. Yeah, you want to have a good guy to play with. So, like, but you work fucking 50 hours a week, so you're like, I can't work 50 and play 50. So this guy would build up characters. I don't know, what do they have, like wizards, barbarians, maidens, something like that. He would build these things up and sell them for as much as $200 to $500 on eBay. And you essentially would just give them, like, when you build this character, you would give them like access, like an access code, so that when they would load up the game, they could load up this profile. And I mean, that's all this kid did for 14, 16 hours a day. Played World of Warcraft, seeded the public with characters. That was it.
Wow.
So there's, I mean, right there's a demand. You know, there's a demand for people that want video games that just don't have the time. They want to enjoy the experience of getting on there and not having to build it up. Now, some people might not like that, though, because they want to like have the challenge of building up their character and going around and grinding, dungeon grinding, doing whatever it is. But other folks are like, look, I want to slap it in and go to work.
I feel like as you get more and more into this realm of like the Matrix or like a holodeck, that becomes more and more likely that more people are going to get like crack addicted to these games. Or what's that game? There's like this there's this like show, is it, I don't know if it's like an anime thing or whatever, but there's like a character who's like a kid who always wears goggles, and his goggles connect him to the internet or something like that, and he's like always on board a spacecraft or something. It was like some kind of like cowboy sci-fi show. And, oh crap, I don't know. I remember it.
I think I know the image you're talking about. I've seen it on Reddit a couple times.
Yeah, and it's like you've got these goggles on. Well, there's that planet where there's an image on Reddit where some artist mocked it up, but it's like this. It looks like a guy who's recovering from, you know, like a drug addiction or something. He's like hauled up in a corner, and he's got these goggles on, and they're just like glowing on his face, and it's just like he's stuck in this like VR reality.
Yeah,
I could totally see that happening.
I've seen that before.
Where you just become so desensitized to the real world, where you just it becomes more real for you to live in your goggles in this little like can you
Just
I can totally
think
imagine
about
that.
just think about it this way. Again, going back to World of Warcraft, if somebody came out with a headset that put your computer monitor right up to your eyeballs and you plugged your headphones in and like the one device you wore, exactly what you're talking about is what would be happening right now.
Well, that's Oculus Rift.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oculus Rift.
Yeah, that VR, like, isn't it 3D stereoscopic eyeglasses?
It is 3D stereoscopic, and it's a headset. You put the headset on, and it's in a way you're basically transported into whatever world the game provides.
Yeah.
But there's still, here's my thing with virtual reality and where it exists right now. There's still a lack of tactile experience with virtual reality, which is why I don't really like the concept. It's like, okay, cool. Reality is based around a tactile experience with people around you, objects around you, and the world around you. But virtual reality as it stands now, sitting in a chair and wearing a helmet is not necessarily virtual reality. It may be virtually, man, I don't even know a term for it, but you're watching. You're still
only
watching.
two.
It's
You're
still
only
visual. It's still visual reality. It's still not
and audio.
virtual reality.
So you're hijacking two senses. You
Yeah,
got your
it's only
five
the
primary
two.
senses, but you're hijacking two.
That's a really good way to put it. You're hijacking two senses or satisfying the experience through two senses,
What's
which
int-
is sight and sound.
Did you see the thing where they talked about like when the guy put it on and he has him stand under the water that's dripping because he starts to feel as if like he can feel it because his mind is making it real.
Right.
Because
right.
those senses are so strong that they bleed a little into your other senses where whatever, like they have those like psychology experiments where they'll put like your hand through a piece of glass window so you think it's your hand and they'll be touching your real hand, and then what they do is when you're not paying attention they swap out your hand with like a rubber hand,
Right.
and then they like
I watched
they
that,
like
yeah.
start touching it and you start reacting as if because you're so convinced that that's your hand.
Yeah,
So even though you're not being touched, your mind makes it real.
What that was is it was like somebody sitting at a table and there was like a wall they put up halfway right between halfway through you. So what, like your left arm was on one side of this little cardboard wall and your right hand was on the other side. And I think the trick was again is they actually tricked you to make you think the fake arm coming from where your left or your right arm would be it made you think that was your arm.
And then
the way
you would
they set it
react.
up.
Your brain would process that information and make it real because you're seeing it with your real eyes, so you have to you start to get there. And I wonder if you did that with the Oculus Rift, like in a sense of if you were to play it long enough, like right now you have all these people who are just playing it for a little bit, right? And it's just like the Matrix when he's like, oh, the mind makes it real, and I'm not saying people are gonna die playing the Oculus Rift.
I hope not.
They start shaking in their chair and then they fall over with blood coming out of their eye.
But if you were to play that game for a really, really long time, would you get to that point where suddenly you're really getting into it, it starts to become more and more real, where you're starting to, those additional sensory inputs start to bleed even more into your traditional ones and like overtake them? I don't know.
I think you make a good point that the audio and visual senses are strong enough to sort of bleed into the other, but there will always be a disconnect still that disallows you to really become that submerged within another world that still doesn't look like your world. At the end of the day, you still have to take the glasses off and you still have to come back to the experience that is real life. So without being able to literally get up, walk around in a space and experience the virtual world, you still never fully connect to it, which is pretty interesting. Because you think that if you sat in goggles for 6 or 7 hours and experienced like this pixel-based world, that would become like this. That's like, okay, cool, this is reality. But as far as the human mind goes, you're still processing what the reality is around you. And the example of that is when you see these guys using the Oculus Rift and the guy who's showing the system to them is standing right behind them. They're always still aware of where this guy is, even though he's not talking. Like, and you hear him comment, it's like, oh, you're right behind me, but this is really weird because when I turn around, I don't see you. But I know, like, my mind is still processing that you're literally right here. And so when you say something too, there's a disconnect in the space because, oh, I turn around, but you're not there. This is really weird. So it's strange because you're still existing in two worlds, and the world that you actually exist in is still your primary, so you can never really exist in that virtual world.
What if they just merged? Like imagine this, picture this. Imagine an Oculus Rift in the future that was like a transparent headset. And this goes into, what is that?
It's augmented reality.
Augmented reality.
Right.
But this goes into, though, also like the nature of reality and how your brain makes reality. Like outside of here, nothing exists. Like my eyes are no different from like the way the Oculus Rift is obtaining information and then converting it into pixels and creating a reality is no different from the way my brain is. It's receiving visible light and receiving the frequencies of sound and touch and all these other kind of things and creating a virtual reality in my mind. Like creating like a holographic reality, right? So if you start to merge these things, almost like augmented VR, you could be walking around with headsets and you could be interacting with characters and interacting with things that aren't even there in the real world, but they start to become like seamlessly blended by your mind, by your brain, like in the future, like creating these things. So you almost could have a society where everybody is equivalent to like paranoid schizophrenic because they're interacting with like their own, like, you know, like now you have like web, like they have a desktop like interactions. Like you could have like a character on your desktop who's like interacting with you, like almost like a little virtual guide or something. Imagine that in the future where you have your own virtual guide and everybody, just imagine like a bunch of people just walking around like talking with people who aren't even there because they're interacting with like AIs or virtual beings that only they can see.
That already happens with Bluetooth headsets.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
For those of us who don't know, what is Oculus Rift? I've never heard of that.
The Oculus Rift is... It's like Kholi knows what it is.
It's a video game peripheral made by these guys here in California, actually.
Oh, so it's an accessory.
It's an accessory, and they're building for the PlayStation consoles and computer consoles. It's basically an add-on, so you can sort of sit within whatever 3D world that you're in. So the demo right now runs with what's the Dragons game? Really popular.
Dragon Age? Or no, Skyrim?
Skyrim. Yeah, the demo's running with Skyrim right now. And so when they're showing these guys, they're in the Skyrim world, and they're like, whoa, I remember this part of the game, but I never really experienced it like this. Like, I can, like, see this guy's, like, mustache and stuff like that.
And it's stereoscopic?
Yeah, it's stereoscopic. So
nice.
It looks very interesting. And the major draw to me is actually hearing the human experience when these guys are wearing it. Because I haven't had access to it yet, so I don't know how it is, but hearing these guys react to it, especially when they do the fly demo. So they basically kill physics in the world and allow you to fly around.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way that the goggles are set up, you really feel like you're flying. Even though it's still not as tactile as it should be, because of these 3D worlds and how well they're built now in video games, even on like PlayStation 3 hardware, which is technically very old hardware. I think it's like 4 or 5 years old now. These guys actually feel like they're flying.
Yeah.
And so when they reapply the gravity setting and you're falling, a lot of these guys actually get sick.
Oh yeah,
like,
I can
immediately
imagine.
And have to take off the goggles because they feel like, oh my God, like I just fell.
Your stomach just drops.
Yeah, well
Right.
that's how your brain determines how you walk around in real life. It takes images from our eyes and the sensory input from your inner ear, and it compares the two all the time. And when they're matching up, you feel normal. When they're not matching up, when you're pulling a G on a roller coaster, and it visually doesn't look like you're moving, but you really are. That's when your brain goes, whoa, I'm sick, and then that's where you get that sensation from.
And these are the areas where a system like Oculus Rift really works, because those, like you said, that's eyes and ears. Like the majority of that's eyes and ears. Like maybe you can't feel like the wind and everything like that, but for the majority, like if you're flying around, eyes and ears are what are going to dictate the danger or the peril or threat in being 100 feet or 2,000 feet above ground.
Just like if you're out in the jungle in the middle of the night, you're relying on those two most of all, over anything, to determine if you're going to get pounced on by a jaguar.
Jaguars are vicious.
Yeah.
Vicious.
Yes.
Cruel
Gotta be
creatures.
careful.
Vicious cats.
Well, how
Jaguars of the jungle.
many friends do you guys have who have ever played either first-person shooters where they say they can't play them? They're like, dude, I get sick. I get sick when I play them. So that just goes to show you some people are not, they're hypersensitive to that type of movement. When they see that, it's almost like it's screwing with their equilibrium. Their balance is off, and they're looking at it and they're like, oh my God, I don't feel good. So, you know, perhaps an experience like that wouldn't really appeal to the mass audiences, but, you know, you'd still have a large community of gamers or even entertainers or entertainment people that would essentially have a lot of these things going off. I mean, imagine going to a concert and everybody's got an Oculus Rift headset on, and the concert is going on up on stage, but there's a feed, there's a patch that's going to these goggles, that there's all these other things happening through the goggles as well. Like, you know, the artists are performing and they're playing, but you've got like these crazy explosions that are going off and all kinds of other things. Like, the experiences could be completely changed. You know, everything could be completely
amplified.
Changed. It could be.
Really, it could be like additional stuff that's just coming into it now. And if you don't have these goggles, you're just like, oh, you know, if you don't have the update, you're not getting all the fun out of this. Everybody else is.
There might even be.
I'm really glad that you brought up augmented reality very early in the discussion, because to me, virtual reality is a very old and dated concept. Virtual reality is like the concept that you got in maybe like late 60s, 70s, where computers are just now being realized and everything like that. And, oh, what if we lived in a computer world and we could sort of disconnect from our human body and exist there only? That's a very dated concept. That's fledgling technology and the limitations of the human mind to imagine something greater.
I feel like that's the first place we go when we started seeing computers and computer graphics. We go, whoa, what if we could get it to the point where we couldn't distinguish from real life from the virtual life?
Exactly.
That's the first spot we went. We didn't even go to augmented reality.
Augmented reality is fairly new, and it is quite possibly, and I personally believe, what people really mean when they say virtual reality, or the experience that you want to have with virtual reality.
So go into that more, Kholi, for people who don't know, VR versus augmented. Like, what would augmented have that virtual wouldn't have?
Well, augmented reality is like what Geoff said. You are still experiencing the tactile world of what may or may not be your reality. I know you look at me, Geoff, when I say reality. I can feel you like staring at me and judging me. But the difference is virtual reality limits you to whatever the programmer sees in a world that the programmer builds. Augmented reality is the world that you live in. It's us in this room right now, or it's the person on the train looking around at everybody else. When you augment the reality that you exist in, then you're inserting things that have no real reason to be there sometimes. And sometimes it would be for a fun experience, a horrific experience,
more
personal experience with the world around you.
Personalizing your own reality.
Exactly.
Right? But staying within the collective reality of the other people you're sharing it with.
Right. And I feel like that is the future. Virtual reality is just, it was this concept, like Matt said, like we gravitated to first.
Completely, totally rebuilt from the ground up.
Yeah, exactly.
Your world.
And then our augmented reality is, oh, I can still live, but have fun and experience something interesting that feels very tactile and very real to me, because I can still, I keep hitting this cable, sorry. Because I can still grab this bottle of water while I'm running from this alien and have a sip to replenish myself before I jump off of this gorge to escape the alien. I think that is the real future of interactive gaming or interactive entertainment.
Is the augmented version.
Yeah, I'm picturing something like you could have a virtual pet Yoshi, you know, walking around, and again, like maybe Google Glass, where it's analyzing the world in 3D around you in real time, and then projecting the 3D Yoshi in real time in your environment. And again, it looks real to you because you got stereo vision that you're looking through. Mm-hmm. So it's literally projecting. It's walking up on the couch behind Kholi, and then it's jumping up on the couch and sitting there in between the two of you guys, licking itself, and then going after little eggs and things. Like
licking itself is it's a very visual concept. Like, what are you doing?
No,
Yoshi?
You went right for the gutter, didn't you?
Yeah.
That would totally sell, dude. I mean, what was it, like 15 years ago, where there was like those little
Neopets,
Tamagotchi or whatever.
Yeah. And then like Nintendo dogs came out where you could like the flip screen, like you could take care of your dog and your pet, and then on Game Boy Color you could like grow your pet. So you already know that the market is built for it. People like to have that. Of course, having something real can be too much of a real responsibility. So your virtual responsibility can be a lot less.
But you still, what's interesting, okay, is that with the Tamagotchi thing, whatever, other people could see that. I could see you interacting with your dog, right? Now, if you have a virtual dog now, let's say you're wearing goggles all the time. And
you'd be on an open network. Like,
you
for
could
example,
share it.
We could say we're on an open network.
Share it.
You could say, hey, you want to see my virtual dog running around?
And then you get it from your perspective.
And I can, add you just to my Dropbox folder.
Well, see, this is interesting because the more you think about augmented reality, the more you bring up the limitations. But the limitations have already been dealt with. Like Jason just said, network. I mean, Bluetooth exists. Yeah. Bluetooth is fast enough to deliver that kind of information between headsets. Everything in an augmented reality world, it already exists. The only thing that doesn't exist, which actually it does now, because that's Google Glass, like you said, is the hardware. Yeah. But now the hardware exists. And that's why I believe that's where it was going. It's still in the first place.
The system's got to be put together too to link people together.
Well, true.
Again, to take advantage of, like I was saying, not only reading your environment in 3D in real time, which is still barely happening now.
Yeah, you can barely. I mean, the iPhone is sort of like an example of that, where you get these augmented reality games where you hold it up and the tracking's not there yet. The tracking and everything like that, and that's a disconnect when you see the UFO is interesting, but it's not exactly moving like it should be.
Now, would augmented reality be just a stepping stone, though, to full-blown VR? And I think
eventually,
because right now it's like visual effects. When I think of visual effects in movies, it's right for the time being. If you have practical effects mixed with CG effects, it's more real. So rather than let's go rebuild this entire environment and build out this building, it'd be a lot easier if we photograph a real building and now we add, smoke and glass busting and a dinosaur hitting it rather than trying to build up everything. So augmented reality, I think of let's say we were going to go play Halo right now with augmented reality. So we all put on some goggles and we're interacting with this real environment, and there's IR scanners and all other sorts of high-tech shit built right into the goggles so that it's scanning our environment almost so it's rebuilding everything, and we're all on a network, so I know where you are and you know where I am and where things are interacting with, and I'm just running around with my hands up in the air, but when I look down through my little goggles, I see, a Halo rifle, and I see all my little interface icons right over my glass. We're running around in the neighborhood. To anybody without the headset, we just look like a bunch of crazy people running around with their hands up in the air. But to us, we could see, weapons and soldiers and aliens and dropships and all kinds of stuff and and kill counts and all this other stuff. So now we're utilizing our real environment. And maybe it's not a destructive environment in a sense of I'm shooting plasma, bolts across the side of the house here. And maybe it just registers as like a little dot or something. But it can't really do anything destructive to the environment because it's still incorporating that real environment. So I think that's really cool. That would be awesome. But once you get into once you get past that and you go straight into, because even the goggles and all the stuff we're talking about is very crude compared to if you were to hack right into your consciousness and really augment your consciousness. So now I'm not even using your eye. I'm going straight into your brain and I'm creating the same way, almost like augmenting
that's
that
like
reality.
if they're able to tap into the nerves going from your eye to your brain, and also learn how to not only read it but also write it.
Yeah,
you can read it and write it at the same time. Just like any other game you would, like a VGA output to your computer monitor. If you could tap into that and broadcast something from your computer directly into your brain electrically, that's what you're talking about.
And out. So you have an I/O, so you have in and out, so you can still do your networking capability, but then it becomes, now you're transcending augmentation and maybe turns into a real upload process. And then it goes into, if this is really already a holographic reality that is manifested in your mind and we're all collectively experiencing the same reality, what if you're really getting to the point where the Holy Grail is actually getting to the point where you could upload information? So it's almost like right now this is a read-only hard drive. Right now we're only reading our collective reality, the reality we're experiencing. But when you get the right technology, perhaps you can start to upload. And you can change so this becomes a read-write drive, and suddenly I can manifest something with just by pure thought or within my game world, right? And I can create my virtual dog running around, but you see it. Everyone sees it who's basically on this planet or experiencing this reality, you would see these things because I'm writing to the read-only drive.
But you're still talking
That makes
about
sense?
augmented reality, though.
It's kind of the same.
It is the same thing.
It's like, where does that line become
between virtual and augmented,
or even just real reality? They almost all kind of merge at one point. It's almost like they're three separate things for a while, and based on time and technology, they start to turn into one thing. Where that's just reality. And in this reality, you can read and write to it.
Yeah, the augmented reality you're talking about that we have now is you're still receiving your input through your sensory organs, through your eyeballs, through your eardrums, etc., through your nose. The next step is tapping directly into that system electrically, right into the nerves. You run a little electrode.
Yeah, you're hijacking the signal.
Hook it right on.
You're hijacking a signal into your body.
You're tapping in, and then you can send and receive that way. That's the next step. And that's when augmented reality will take that next giant leap up. And the next giant leap up after that is total, complete virtual reality.
Which I still feel instinctively that for complete virtual reality to exist, then the quote unquote reality that we live in now cannot exist.
Well, no. That's the difference between in the Matrix. There's a physical world in the Matrix, and the difference is what I feel in the Matrix. What they're saying is that the physical world is physical, as if those as if the matter and the molecular makeup, the atoms are physical things, and they're not energy. Whereas in the Matrix, it's just information, which is also energy. But so there's a difference. They're almost just like there's a difference between the two. But what I'm proposing, or what I think, and this goes, if you believe in the theory of the holographic universe, then the virtual reality is no different than the reality you're currently experiencing. They're the same thing. So in that respect, if
I can't fly, Geoff. I would fly in a virtual reality. So
no,
I know
now.
The difference. I know the difference between my reality that is grounded in the physics that we have built within this reality that you're saying we're experiencing, but in a virtual or augmented one, if I could fly or punch through walls, I'd be like, hey,
you just got to change the code.
This is a little,
that's what I mean by
a little
it, though.
Different here. I mean,
it's like they're both the same thing. Like in the Matrix, it'd be like they're plugging into the Matrix, not knowing they're already in a Matrix. And that's kind of even what they hint at with Neo eventually being able to use his powers in the physical world.
Outside of the Matrix.
Because he's in a simulation. He's created a simulation within a simulation, but they're both simulations. It's just the code is different in the other one. And in the other one, he believes he can fly. He just doesn't believe it as strongly in the original one.
So you're saying all of his group, the people within his little troop, they all have the similar powers that they have in the Matrix, but yet they just can't tap into it in the physical world?
It's like it's just like the coding is different.
Like I'm back in art school. There was this one guy who loved the Matrix so much, dude. He thought we were literally in a computer program after he saw the film. I was like, oh man. But no, I hear you though, dude.
That's what I'm because that's what the holographic theory of the universe. That's what it proposes when you break down, and it does. I'm not saying it's the absolute. I'm not a physicist, and I haven't studied it and run tests to say that I can conclusively prove this or something. But it is something that I resonate with that in a sense of from reading it and knowing certain things and what they've talked about when they talk about even just the wave particle theory and like all these kind of things. When they break down like what they believe is actually happening and how things aren't solid, like your shoes aren't solid objects. It's just like it's energy being manifested by conscious thought and all these different things. Like if you buy that, if you believe that, then the reality we're experiencing is no different from super advanced virtual reality. It's just right now we're at the whim of we don't have the hacking codes. We don't consciously know how to hack into it and upload and change things. Because if you knew that, if you could do that, then you could change what you looked like. You could just think it. And if you would have this conscious power to change what you look like, to manifest objects, to change your reality, and it would be uploading and posting to this almost like just an ever-evolving conflux of energy, and then everyone else would start interacting with that and seeing that. So if I were to manifest a cup of hot chocolate, everybody in this room would see it. It would suddenly appear right there.
And you could touch it.
Yeah, and everybody would see it. And you could smell it.
Well, it's interesting because I think we are thinking the same thing, but depending on your outlook, you're talking about augmenting reality still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really. It's
Yeah.
just getting the codes where you can finally hack it.
Yeah.
And
Which sort of
do what
brings
you
us
wanna
back to topic with augmented reality and entertainment. Like that's where the entertainment comes from. Even if it is a crude method, like glasses and everything like that, which would undoubtedly evolve to smaller
stepping
peripherals,
stones.
like contacts and everything like that. And then maybe one day there is something totally sci-fi like where you connect to a device that goes direct into your head. I would never get that installed, by the way. I would be totally fine with glasses. But that's still where I think we're going, especially for the near future, because everything exists right now. Everything for an augmented reality experience right here and now exists to the point where we could actually see it within the next 2 or 3 years. When we've got our Google Glass and we're walking around and now I have a pet fucking dinosaur.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, check out Reznor, my dinosaur. Like, can you see this? And I think it would be an open-ended user experience that is customizable. So you design it from the ground up to the point where everybody has access to everything immediately, and you tailor your access to what you like. Like the internet is not limited to what you want to see. It's everything. And then you set your browser settings to see what only you want to see. And I think that is the way that you start.
Dude, I just got a thought when you said that, Kholi. Like, imagine if when you put on these headsets, whatever they might be, like Google Glass or like, just the Oculus or whatever, and when you do this within your own virtual environment, you essentially have like a UI that comes around you, because it can show your body height, weight, type, etc. You can say if you're looking for relationships, it can say if you're this, that, and the other. Like, it shows a lot of personal information. It could be essentially your business card to the world. But what if you could like customize yourself and like I dress myself like Batman every day, and then I invite you into my network and like I'm walking around and I'm like, and you see me,
and,
but
and
then
I
I'm like,
see you and I hit accept and all of a sudden boom, you look like Batman. I'd be like, dude, awesome.
But you see, this is the virtual reality. That's the augmented reality that these guys were thinking about when they first invented it.
Hey, Jay,
that's what it is.
I could see that.
I come into the kitchen one morning and all of a sudden you're like, Buck Angel? Is that you?
Oh my God.
And
She's just sitting down having a drink.
And at first it is
morning,
like,
bro. Morning.
And at first it sort of is like a layover or a skin, as you were like, you scan 3D objects. And so people are skinned, and so it'll be very crude at first. You're like, oh, okay, cool. You're not really Batman because I can see your arms poking out of your suit.
Right.
That would even be funnier and make everything a little goofier, though. Like the clunkiness of all the hardware.
Yeah, at first it'll be clunky, like the interface and everything like that. But as it advances, and as in the same way that video games advance, like, we came from 8-bit, or even worse than that, you came from Pong, which are a few pixels jumping around the screen, bouncing the ball back and forth. But look where we are now with, PlayStation 4 is coming out. But PlayStation 3 games look very freaking real sometimes. Uncharted, the new Tomb Raider, these things look very, very real. And so once you apply the same growth spurt to these augmented reality things, which is happening a lot faster than video games ever did, which it should be. That's sort of like the law of how these things work. Then, we get introduced to our first taste of Google Glass augmented reality in the next 2 or 3 years. And then 3 years later, I can't distinguish whether I'm actually seeing a dinosaur hanging out in my pool or not. When I turn around, there's a dinosaur swimming in the pool. I need to take off my glasses.
You got to lift him up for a minute. Like,
just to make sure that something is not going wrong.
Now, what if you had that, when you talk about going in the contacts, right? And I'm still going to, let's just keep it somewhat grounded in physicality right now. So you've got contacts, right? And let's say you've got a generation that comes up that everybody's got them, just as much as right now almost everyone has a cell phone, right? So you get, everybody kind of goes with the flow, you get acclimated to certain technologies, and it just becomes a part of your culture, right? So all these people have cell phones. What if everybody in the future has these things, like a certain generation? And now you have an interesting, I think, dilemma, because you wouldn't need, for instance, right now you have all this signage and all of these, like right now you could drive around and you see those little like black boxes that you're supposed to use your augmented reality app on, and it shows information or something.
Barcodes, like scans like barcodes, gives you
and stuff
information,
like that.
takes you to a site, gives you extra info. Right.
Well, if everyone has these contacts, now you can be cheaper, just from an economic perspective. You don't need to do so much in the physical. You can just augmented signage and decor and all these kind of things. So if you maybe didn't have these, you could be walking around like, man, this is a pretty boring place. And then suddenly you put these in, and it's boom. It's like everything is colorful, and there's like signs everywhere, and like holographic little like advertisements and all kinds of crazy sights and sounds.
They wouldn't have to decorate for Christmas or Halloween anymore. It would just be, it's too expensive, so turn on your augmentation glasses and hit accept when you walk near the building.
But I think that's
boom, all
an
the
amazing and exciting concept, and it's not just that it's an amazing or exciting concept. Like, that's close. That's you're thinking, I
can see that happening
2 or 3 years off. Like, the beginning of that transition between reality and then the augmented reality being a part of our reality is literally like 2 or 3 years off. Like, that's what's going to happen. Like, and the thing that's going to push it is what you're saying, advertising. Like, any way that you can be advertised to will always be a primary channel that people invest in. Because, oh man, like, you mean I can just feed you an underwear commercial to your Google Glass, and I can get you to buy my smiley face underwear?
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and invest $20,000 or $30,000 into 5-second little.
Oh yeah. You guys remember Minority Report, right? Do you remember when everywhere you walked around, it had like that scanner that would hit your eye?
Right.
And as soon as it hit your eye, it would personalize the advertisement experience for you. It would
say your name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, what if you had some type of an IR sensor or some type of a Bluetooth signal that's coming off your Google Glass that essentially every time you went by a billboard, it said, Matt, come to Vegas. We've got hotel rooms at $29.99 at the Palms, blah, 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 blah. That's very real, because now it's personalizing the experience of advertising. And that's what advertising gurus are always trying to look for. They're trying to target their audience, and they're trying to personalize the experience. They want to make you feel like you're the most important piece of that. So I could definitely see, like, when you go by a certain area, maybe there's a Wi-Fi or a zone that goes out maybe 30 to 50 yards. And if you cross through that, you know, you see the latest trailer pop up in a little pop-up window. You see the latest deals that are coming up, you know, but it's personalized to you.
Yes, that is a very freaking good statement there. I just want to say that. That's amazing.
Dude,
especially like the proximity sensor and like Wi-Fi and everything like that. Again,
and
this
having the
technology
ability
exists.
to turn it off.
Yes, having the ability to turn it off. I was going to say that next, because right now the hardware is paid for. Like, Google, you can get a Google Glass beta if you pay, like, I think it's $1,200 or $1,400. Yeah, something like that, right? But that's right now. There will be a point where it will be free, and you will have the version that you cannot turn off ads and advertising until you pay for it. That's what it'll be. That's why I say that's very, very close, because there's everything exists. Like Jason mentions, the Wi-Fi zone or the Bluetooth zone. That's not foreign technology. That's not fantasy or sci-fi. If I go to a Starbucks, I can use their Wi-Fi because I am in proximity. And when I have to use their Wi-Fi, I have to go through their web page or their splash page to put in the code. This kind of access exists right now, and literally the only thing that's missing is the hardware. It's pretty crazy.
Imagine this too, in terms of just why you would do this. Right now, when you have a computer, you just have, like, let's say you have a computer screen here. You can open a ton of windows, right, and stack them all over the place and have all this stuff going on, and it's just existing on that screen. Well, if you have a contact lens, or two of them, goggles, let's just say contact lens, because now, imagine I walk into a room, and I just have a computer the size of a small little waste bin, but super powerful, super fast computer. But it works now. You're just like your screen can hold multiple little windows and icons and applications, so can your little contacts. So my computer doesn't have to exist in the physical. I can walk into my room, and if I decide I need a 50-inch LCD screen equivalent to work on today,
real screens will go away.
Screens disappear. So now I'm using my virtual screen, which is really just a way for me to interface and interact with this, right? If I need additional screens, they can be wherever I need them. Now, if I walk out of the room, it's constantly tracking where I am, so they just recreate these holographic-like screens exactly where I would think they would be in my room.
Right.
And if I want to move them, I just access the settings, control panel. Oh, I need to shrink this screen and move this over here, or do this now.
And initially, settings like that, like in the next 2 or 3 years, as we were talking about, you set it on your iPad and it communicates with your Google Glass within the range of the measurement or the dimensions of your room.
Yeah.
And so
that'd be awesome.
It all exists, like, right freaking now.
You could be physically using an iPad and designing what you want your virtual office to look like. So when you have your contacts in, and maybe it doesn't work for, like, a virtual couch because you're going to sit there and fall right through it, right?
Yeah, everything tactile still exists.
But for, like, posters, wallpaper, for anything that you cannot touch, but you want it to still be in that space. And I can still share screens with you, but maybe I don't share that screen.
Right.
So I have a private screen that's like showing
private
other
pictures.
Yeah, or something,
like
information. But I can decide like, oh, I don't want you guys.
So he's like, yeah, I got a private screen.
I got a poster. I don't want to see.
I got a Katy Perry picture up right now. It's pretty private.
These are really.
That's cool. You could really do that. Imagine just photographs, dude. If you had photographs where, for when clients come in, it shows various things, but for you, it shows pictures of your kids.
Right. It can get confusing too.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting dynamic.
They're like looking at a picture, like, that's a great picture. What you looking at my wife?
Why are you looking at my wife like that, man? Are you talking about my wife's chest?
He's like, oh, I'm sorry, dude. I have totally different layouts assigned to, guests or clients or whatever who come in here.
And we're talking about this. I think 6 or 7 years ago, this would be a sci-fi conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's literally everything that we're talking about. It already has started and it's already begun. It just hasn't been implemented in the way that we're talking about. Minority Report was, since we're on topic of movies and everything, which we're not really, Minority Report is a really good example of a reality that could exist. That was not that far-fetched. The movie may have been great, may not be. I enjoyed it. But when you get into, like, oh, okay, I'm on the street and this holographic image is talking to me, telling me to buy Zap Cola because it knows I drink a certain kind of cola with a certain kind of flavor. That's actually very honest. That's a very honest view of what was coming in the first place.
I think they went about it the old clunky way of, oh, let's broadcast an actual hologram in the air.
Yeah,
that
that's
people
the
will be
old
walking
clunky
through.
way.
No, that's the old clunky way.
That's
like Back to the Future.
They didn't see augmented reality coming up. Maybe.
Yeah, and again,
like
it was like the
Jaws
limited
coming out.
scope of like what we knew technology to be versus what it is now. I don't think anybody really saw the power in simply having a device that you're wearing what could project everything that you need to instead of having like little pods
into your eyeballs instead of out into the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I want to go back to entertainment real quick, and I want to talk about how obviously money is going to drive this machine. Money's going to drive this machine. It's going to drive the progress. It's going to drive everything as far as what will be the advances. Another market that I think that it could really, really kill on would be the sports market.
Oh, man.
Because imagine this just for a second. Let's say you want to watch the 85 Bears win the Super Bowl. Or let's say you want to watch Jordan go off against the Celtics when he dropped 63 on them. I saw this happen literally 10 years ago when I was at Ohio State and I was in the 3D animation and design program. They were essentially assigning sensors to old movie footage and they were recreating old movie actors digitally in a 3D frame. So they can take footage and they can recreate that in a 3D environment. So let's say you wanted to be on the 50-yard line and watch the Bears win the Super Bowl in 85. You could download like a pay-per-view through your augmented reality view, whether it's Google Glass, Oculus, whatever, and you can experience every drive, obviously from whatever footage they have, and they can recreate it in a three-dimensional world, and you can experience that. You can sit down and experience that. You can experience sporting events. You can experience trips around the world.
I could see them installing in arenas like that, like a 3D camera system that takes not only the like with lasers or something in real time, the 3D space, but also photo pictures to paste around those polygons that it's creating to make it look real.
Make it look very real.
And do it all in real time. And not only that, broadcast it to whoever wants to watch it.
That's what I mean.
You just sit in your couch and just boom, be there.
Yeah. You could be sitting
and then
literally
be
in
flying
your
around
office.
the stadium looking from any perspective you want.
You already have like some of these. You have like 10, 15 cameras, so you could probably go not maybe to that old game, but even like any game in the last few years, which has been broadcast in HD, captured in HD. They have so many cameras.
They have data.
Yeah. You could take all that raw data and probably in the future run it through a super advanced AI that would just like even now, like where they can break down, oh, this, even though this was shot 20 years ago and it was 2D, we can guess and figure out the 3D interpolation of the framing and all that kind of crap. They could probably take all that raw data, combine it, and you just like drop it into a little file and it just renders out like a 3D world that you can go explore. Oh, I want to see that basketball game again, but I want to be able to fly around and move around as like a little virtual character and watch the whole game in real time.
Yeah, I want to check it out from a different perspective. I mean, it's just augmenting a reality that existed. And that also works for movies. Like everything you're talking about really works for movies in the best way, because for movies you can plan that way. Like you plan for certain things to be experienced in a certain way, but you can experience this conversation from like this area or this angle and everything else. And that's as simple as literally adding more cameras. That's what you're doing. You're literally adding more cameras and interpolating the distance between cameras and subjects and everything like that, and then you've got your augmented version of this movie. I don't know how it would work for, say, an interactive movie where you actually experience the movie as like a character. I think that would be very disorienting.
Well, what if...
I feel like you just like lose your mind.
Well, just like, think about like game cinematics, and like me and Jason have been like geeking over these things like, for days now.
Dude, that Elder Scroll,
look so good.
Yeah, they look amazing.
Unbelievable.
They look so amazing.
Yeah, they look amazing.
If you had, even Elder Scrolls, if you had, and granted that's not gameplay, but it will be in 2-3 years. I mean, if you look at game animatics or cinematics from
PlayStation 1.
Yeah, like even PlayStation 2. Some of these ones, I remember some of the PC games like Command and Conquer for their game cinematics. I would sit there and go, man, one day games are going to look like that. Well, games have already surpassed that.
Yeah, games are beyond that.
So they're going to go beyond even what Elder Scrolls and some of the stuff we're watching from Blair Studios, right? Now, those with the Oculus headset on, that's when even beyond this augmented reality is going to be so immersive, so real, that I think it does lead even more to that realm of, movies becoming video games where like your characters and you're playing this out, and it's just so immersive that you really become attached to the characters in the game, and you feel like you are whatever character they're propping you up to be in this thing, right?
Right.
Crap, I totally lost my train of thought where I was going with this.
Do you guys remember those books? They were around in the early
Which
90s.
Way books?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
Way books. Like, essentially, you'd read, let's say, a chapter in. Then at the end of the chapter, it would give you options. It would say, if you'd like to do this, if you'd like to do this, go to this page, go to this page. So it would essentially give you, what was it called, like 1 or 2 options? Obviously more than
sometimes
one.
you get 2. Like a lot of them were fantasy books. I had read a series of fantasy books that I absolutely loved, and it would give you choices like, would you cast this spell? Like if you cast a healing spell right now, go to this page. And if you choose the wrong thing, you die in like a page. And you have to restart. And you're supposed to restart from the beginning and make different choices. Like that was the lesson that the book was teaching. And there's strong lessons in there too. It was about analyzing what came before and what could possibly come after when you first read the book. And then when you read through it and choose multiple versions of your story, it's collecting data overall from a world that exists around you, and how do you apply that to the next time that you go into a situation. So the Which Way book is an amazing correlation to this conversation, because that's what that was about.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe even with the movie experience, going off what you said, what if you gave the user, let's say the audience member, the ability to, at certain critical points, pivotal plot points in the film, where you've literally got options for the watcher. You can say, save the girl, take the money.
Yeah.
Save the girl, take the money. What do you do? And then you have your own personal experience. Because essentially the reason I really got involved with the video games was I love film. I absolutely love film. But playing video games gave me the ability to almost play a movie out. I could play out. And once video games started to incorporate better writers, better directors.
Dude, there was a couple of moments I was playing Alien Colonial Marines the other day. Just that, you could tell it's a spot in the game where they spent the most time, it seemed. I was in the movie. It was just so cool. It was so fun, and that's kind of when you guys kind of walked in when I was doing that. I was coming to the end of that part, but it was like that. It was like I was living the movie that I always wanted to live. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, and that's a great experience for the user, because now you have the ability to you're more attached to it. And not to say that somebody who just likes a certain book or a certain film isn't as attached to it, but when you get to interact with something, you have so much more attachment with it than just simply having one experience with it. Like, for example, Red Dead Redemption. Loved that game. I would literally ride around it and just shoot rabbits and kill rattlesnakes for like 3 hours. Just because it was like, I'd ride around and I'd watch the sunset in the background, and I'm going, wow, that is amazing how well they designed this. Yeah. That is amazing how well they have geography built into this go anywhere, do anything world, and I can interact with random people, and I can go into a town and play Five Finger Fillet or play poker, and then I can go out and hunt hawks and do like all of this stuff. I would just go around and just do random things. But do I like Western movies? Love them. But playing that game was more of an attachment to that experience than watching a Western movie. So to me, I think that that's something that would definitely grip people even further. You would have them caught up in an experience where they would no longer just be attached to it through whether it was the mental projection of like building something in your mind when you're reading. You know, you build a character up, you build an environment up. Now when you see it and you play it and you affect it, there are so many senses that are being, you know, stimulated. You know, your visual, your audio, you know, your, well, I guess those are the only two.
Yeah, I get much more attached to video games than I do to movies by far, by miles. All of my influences, or my major influences, are video games and then anime next. It's weird because it's like they're just cartoons, but there's still a level of like depth to stories in anime that I still do not see in American like cartoons and even American like live action TV shows. There's just like this amazing depth to some of his anime.
Great stories.
It's just like mind blowing. It's like, oh my god, like this is really like mature stuff. But back to video games, it is the interactivity that video games provide and the immersive worlds that these creators make. Even if the stories are sometimes generic and some of the moments are sometimes generic, it's still an amazing experience that keeps you sort of glued to this television far longer than you should be. And sometimes you should not be playing Resident Evil for 8 hours. Or Red
But
Dead.
it happens.
Yeah, I know. Or when I'm out, like when you're like out killing zombies and stuff like that. I shouldn't be doing that when I should be writing or doing stuff that actually make me money. Like this is actually costing me
for those
time
poor souls who are still in school. They should be doing their homework.
Yeah, but it's amazing. Like they're just amazing experiences, and they're not unlike movies. Where movies are, you know, you get this 1.5 to 2 hour stretch of very emotional moments. I feel like the movies the attachment you make to the movie is forgettable. Like you know that you like the movie, and then you can remember the parts of the movie that you liked. But when you remember parts of a video game that you absolutely love, you can still feel the emotions that you had, whether it was like, oh, holy crap. Like I remember when we did that as a co-op and when I got that last shot off. Like that's like a thing that you would feel in real life. Like when you make the winning basket of a video game. Like we've sat around and played NBA Jam.
And a whole lot of screaming going on.
Yeah, even just remembering playing NBA Jam, you can sort of feel. Now you can recall like, oh, I remember how I felt when I dunked on Geoff. Like at the last moment from half court.
Yeah,
that's for two. Yeah, it's an emotional thing. Like video games have always been an emotional thing for me, and it's because of the investment that you put into them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Time. Like it makes me. All right, food for thought here. When you have an interaction with a real person, like let's say right now you can only say the now exists. So looking into your past, you could say an old friend that had an impact on you, and you could speak of them in like a certain like a bonding sense and things you've learned from them, how they made an impression on you. Well, maybe you can already do this, but even with traditional games, I think you could. But in the future, let's say you have a virtual game character who you are interacting with. When you were talking about, oh, you're just riding around, you're enjoying the sunsets. When you're interacting in a heavily augmented, almost like whether it's Oculus Rift or something in the future, and you have a long game that you're playing for a few weeks, and let's say you meet a character in there, I can just imagine that character, if it's well written enough, it could change the course of your life, and it becomes somebody who doesn't really exist in the physical, but especially if there's like a smart AI where it isn't just a repeat, or it's not just playing out dialogue, it's actually interacting with you on a slightly more personal level. It could have a meaningful impact on your life, and almost looking back on it, it could be no different from, oh, I had this old friend and you know, they made a huge impact on my life when I lived here. Well, it could be that just playing this game or game/movie experience that you experience as like a virtual reality has this massive impact on your life based on some guy who just wrote code for a character.
Yeah. Well, I think it also depends on what games you play, because that's not even a future thing. Like there are games I played on Super Nintendo RPGs that I still remember like being very depressed when certain characters died. And this is Super Nintendo. Like, you know, these are pixels and stuff like that.
Do you remember when Aerith died in Final Fantasy VII?
There we go. I was going there.
Dude, going there. That was rough. I was like, whoa.
And when you look back on it, like it doesn't look amazing, but I can still remember the feeling that I got when Sephiroth killed Aerith. It was like this. It was this very eye-opening moment for me in video games. It was like, holy crap! I think video games just grew up And why am I about to cry right now? Like, I feel like I'm about to cry right now because I really like this girl. She's an amazing
had
character.
the attachment, the bonding.
Yeah, but like she dies like she dies like maybe like 2 sixes of the way in, 3 sixes of the way in the game.
But you get attached to the characters.
Yeah,
though.
you get attached to her. Like you really get attached to her because you, as a main character, this is one of 2 girls that you know the main character likes, and you know they like the main character. But out of nowhere, the bad guy just comes and like slays her at a point where she was praying when she died. Like he comes out of nowhere with the sword and like runs her through and kills her while she's praying. And it's just like this, oh God, that moment was fucking depressing.
I mean, dude, can you imagine
It's
interacting? And we were talking about this, the faces. Me and Jason were talking about how the biggest thing has been with these game cinematics even, and in just games in general, is getting the nuances of the face, all the little mannerisms that make them look real, like the eye movement, all these little things, right? And they make a huge difference when you can tell, like just watching some of these old cinematics versus these new ones, it's just massive, just in the face, like it's just a huge difference, right? Now imagine playing a game where you interact with Neytiri from Avatar, and she looks just like that. She's so real, the mouth, the face, everything, and it's personalized at that experience. And how is it any different from interacting with a real person at that point? Whereas,
to a degree, it's not.
I think it could be extreme. Like if something were to happen to her in that game, yeah, it could like depress you for a long time. Or just even people watching Avatar, it was so real that, and I know that I felt that, dude, walking out of that theater. I was like, oh my God, I'm back to the real world here.
There's like a syndrome for that now.
It wasn't
a depression that people are having, that they're not an avatar.
And mine wasn't that bad. I mean, it was, but I could, when I read about it, I could understand, because even like a few hours after that movie, it was this sense of that I had just experienced something that was more real than my current reality or something like that. Now
I get that way with anime, and certain games, but the games generally have to be RPGs or especially co-op games. Jason, I'll let you say what you're going to say really quick, because I want to go into co-op and Oculus Rift.
Go ahead. Go to co-op.
Okay, so one of the bigger things that's going on in video games right now are co-op games. Because of how the internet's advanced, how fast internet connections are, a lot of games that couldn't be realized before in a co-op sense are now becoming a reality, and not just a reality, but it's like, okay, now we have to really satisfy this sector, because there are a lot of people out there who want co-op games. At the PlayStation 4 announcement, there was a game developer that said specifically, there's this car game that we wanted to design, but for the last 20 years, the technology has not been ready. Now with PlayStation 3, now with Xbox 360, and with PlayStation 4, the social aspects, the internet, everything has finally come to a head where we can make this game. And the game is essentially car clubs. Like you have these car clubs around the world. You choose like these high-end cars, and the goal of the game is to become the most badass car club in this world. Like we'll update like places where you can drive and like do drift competitions, and solo rides across from like Paris to wherever. Like that's the point of the game. You get onto the system and you ride out with your friends in these awesome cars. And when he said that, it's like, okay, I understand how you feel. Like it's not, I don't just get where you're coming from. I understand how you feel, because that's an experience I would love to have. I would love to sit and veg out with Kenny and like Matt. You like car games, don't you? Yeah, I love to veg out with Kenny and Matt and literally ride for like 5 hours without destroying well, I'll probably destroy my real world relationship with my girlfriend, but without destroying like a real car or anything like that, and like get into trouble and like do these crazy things, like going drifting around like corners and stuff, and with like the detail and everything like that. But the biggest thing is the experience with friends. Like the co-op experience is a freaking amazing experience to have in a video game, especially if it's an adventure game like Resident Evil 5. God, I don't think I've ever had like as fun an adventure experience in a video game as I had playing Resident Evil 5 3 times with 3 different people. Yeah. Like the co-op was just like, okay, cool, this is where video games are headed. Like we're getting back to
future.
that's it. Like
Left 4 Dead was that for me. I was just loving that, how you had to rely on each other to make it through. You have the voice chats. You could talk to other people you were playing with.
And calling out positions and everything like that.
Yeah, and oh, I fell down, bro, come help me. Or, I'll come find you. Hold on, I'm going to go help you.
Or let's prepare for this moment that we're about to have to fight a tank.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We should go back, get supplies and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting like goosebumps and chills thinking about it.
That shit was so much
because
fun.
that's what the game was. The game was, zombies killing people. But when you got to the heart of it, it was, this is me and 3 friends surviving the zombie apocalypse with weapons that run out of ammo, consequences if I accidentally shoot someone by not aiming properly, having to run away from witches and stuff because we made too much noise when we were coming around a corner. That's the experience. And when we go to apply that to something like Oculus Rift, in like the first person zone where everybody on the internet's wearing this thing, and even if it is like I still have a controller, when we get into Left 4 Dead with Oculus Rift and the first person thing, that's when it's just gonna be crazy. That's when it's gonna blow the hell up. Because you can script characters really well. You can make really good stories, but there's no better story than the human story and the human that you're interacting with, because you can't script that shit. Like some of the stuff I see happen in like co-op games, or like even like playing like Call of Duty, like some of the choices people make are the most ridiculous, stupid things, and then when it works, it's like a moment where you throw your controller up and you scream at the screen and everything like that. Like, how did that work? Like, that's not supposed to work. Like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, that's not how the game works. But it is how it works, because the game relies on the human player, and it relies on human choices and the random, unpredictable things that humans think, say, do, and everything else. So when Oculus Rift does come out, and we've got like these first-person shooters or co-ops or a Left 4 Dead 3 that's Oculus Rift.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, that is going to be insane. Like I just being able to experience things like that with other people is really what the gaming community.
I think that's a cool point. It's like that extension of your abilities. Like even now with like text messaging and emails, if you want, you could just look at those as extensions of who you are. Oh, yeah. Like reaching out and touching people, like the ability just to call somebody or send them a text message. Like it's just all of these things that your reach and your ability to connect and interface with more and more people, it just keeps expanding. And so to be able to do that in even more immersive and more personal, and that bonding experience then becomes super tight. Oh,
that's a good way to put it. It's the bonding experience, dude. And there's also a game called on a game on PlayStation. It's a downloadable game. Man, it escapes me right now. Really pretty game.
Not thinking of Journey, are you?
Journey. Have any of you played Journey?
I watched him play.
Okay, did you play it online?
That's the thing, is they don't tell you, unless you read reviews, they don't tell you you're actually playing online.
Yeah.
Until suddenly you're walking around doing your own thing, and you see another one of you, but you have no way of talking to that other person.
There we go. Okay.
Other than those little crude little sounds that you can play.
Yeah, you can press buttons to make sounds. This is how you communicate in a game. It's an online game. The object of the game is to solve like puzzles and explore this world. It's a very small game, and you're this like dude or a chick, you don't even know what you are, that can only make noises. Like you can sing to communicate.
Yeah, singing.
And so when you're first in the game, you're walking around. It's a very nice looking world, very pretty, like sunsets, right out of like a painting. And you're trying to figure things out. And like you can't really. Sometimes you just at the start of the game, you just can't figure out what's going on. Suddenly, someone appears that you know is another human being somewhere else, but because you are limited to only singing and like making these noises that are, they sound nice. You're like, oh. It's like, oh, that's cute. That's amazing. It becomes what the game is titled, and it's a journey. It's like, oh, this guy has clearly played this level before because he has a longer cape than I do. But just as you get a longer cape, the more experience you get. And so you know that this guy has played it before, and this guy is helping me to figure out what I need to do. Like he may not do it for me, but he's like leading me by singing and telling me which way to go. Like he's saying, "Come with me."
People are enjoying the opposite too, where I'm the elder. I've done this game a couple times, and you see somebody who clearly doesn't know what they're doing. They're just kind of taking off.
Awesome.
Oh,
so you're just like, hey, I'm going to show this person where the extra pieces of the cape are.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I follow me. I've been here before. I know what this is like. Like follow me to this place. And I can't tell you that with a mic. I can only tell you by making a certain noise that says either, I think you play it enough and you know which one is no and which one is yes.
Yeah, like if someone's hitting the button a bunch of times, you know that they're trying to get your attention.
Yeah, they're trying to get your attention, like come this way, like listen to the sound that I'm making and come this way.
That is so
this
cool.
is the right way. The experience that really hit home for me was there's a part where you have to go through like this mystical cave
Careful, no spoilers here.
Oh yeah, no spoilers. But there's a part where you have to get by a certain creature, and there's a path that you have to take, or you'll sort of get reset. And the only way you could possibly know this path is by doing it and like memorizing it. And so I couldn't figure it out, and suddenly this guy pops up, and he has this really long cape. And I was like, okay, this dude knows what he's doing. He's like, oh. He's like making the noises, and he's leading me through this cave, and this monster can't get me. It was freaking amazing. And then he left, and it was like sad.
Yeah, you're sad,
like, dude.
Yeah,
you just left me.
Yeah,
like,
that's
why
one
would
thing.
You do that?
People were reporting that they loved about the game is that they felt like they really took a journey with that person, and at the end of the game, you know, it was really meaningful that it was the two of you finishing the game together. Not again, I don't want to give away spoilers, but the visual part at the what part I'm talking about. That visually,
it's very beautiful.
It's the two of you walking together, and the music's just really an emotional moment, and it's just man.
And then that's it. You don't get to know who you play with.
Not until the end of the credits.
Yeah, you have to like, sit through the credits, and sometimes people leave, and so you just never know who you experienced this amazing like freaking journey with.
And that is awesome. You just gave me goosebumps. That's
dude,
awesome.
and I got goosebumps too talking about it. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, the main point is like, yeah, we can script stuff, and like I've had like a lot of emotional attachments to video game characters, anime characters, but there still won't be anything like the experience of randomness that humanity brings to the table.
Is that because like like if you have an AI, you know it's an AI, right?
Yeah.
But if I think it's something like when you just said that, it made me feel that the difference is that there is this external link beyond the game, beyond the scope of that game, beyond space-time, whatever, that there's like some linkage, and I don't know how to explain that.
Human.
But it's like
it's a human.
But it is. It's like this, like that bonding connection. There's like it just stretches across like space-time wherever it's going, and it makes it more special in that way because it isn't just code or there's something that even if you don't know who they are, that almost makes it more special.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what kind of person you are. I can't hear you talk. I can't hear your inflection. I don't know if you're mad at me or anything like that. It's like, but we have to do this. We have to actually make it through this level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go to put the glasses on Oculus Rift or anything like that, I think it's just gonna just amp it up, like a whole new level, like a completely different experience than what came before it. Because now when I'm in Left 4 Dead and I got the zombie coming up in my face and like
you can't see anything because it's in your face.
Yeah, you can't see anything because you got like a face hugger or something on, and you have to rely on somebody you knew was behind you to shoot it off and get it off of you. It's just gonna be nuts. It's gonna be freaking crazy. Like that's where like the first person experience or Oculus Rift really comes into its own for me. It's not just playing like a game through, but it is that co-op moment, that moment that's going to happen for everybody, where you have to rely on someone else and you can't see anything, and you can hear somebody on the mic saying, I got you. We're going into this room, but as soon as this comes off, there's a tank right behind us. So you might want to get healed up. That's that moment when people will realize, okay, cool, this is what gaming is. Like, this is it. Like, this is where it was going. I'm fully like invested in this. I can't see anything around me in the real world. This is it. This is what my life is right now for like the next like hour and a half, 2 hours.
And
that's
really,
why I love Oculus.
It's really almost like you're when you're just saying this is my mind tangenting off. But it's even when you get invested into like a big show, you're watching, like we watch Walking Dead or any of these shows like Mad Men or Breaking Bad. What these are is like a temporary suspension of your current reality, and you are just immersing yourself into this other one, as if it's like a poor man's like holodeck, whatever. It's just a screen there, but you're saying, I'm done with this reality, these interactions. I don't know, I don't want to think about who people in my family, my friends are. I just want to pretend I'm these characters living in this world, living vicariously this story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it makes me think that when you just another total segue into this, when we were talking about like just with these goggles, how you could just throw yourself into this game and like kind of experience this all out. It made me think of like movies in the future where you might imagine a movie shot in a sense of how Avatar was, but it's just performance, almost like a stage, and it's just acting. There are no predetermined cameras, and it's just performance. And you now put on this headset and you choose how do you want to watch this? Like, it would be like if I just were to come into the space and see the three of you talking, and I'm the observer and I have the headset on, I could choose to look at you, or whatever, and kind of move around the room, look at the space, and just let the scene unfold. But I could choose where I want to be.
I think,
and then follow different characters.
Mm-hmm.
And so for every story, it could be different for everybody who watches it. It might be like a 5 or 6 or imagine like a TV show, like a 10-hour season, and then you log in and you kind of just follow. But it could be like this. It's really like real, because you can choose who do you want to follow and what scene do you want to watch, and it's almost in real time, and you got to go to different places and make choices. But it's like a movie.
Right.
You know what? I think that, again, the choosing who you go with, following around thing would work. But one thing you're forgetting about film, that's a huge part of film. Because this was a question I think somebody, a film school teacher asked at Columbia. They asked me, what's the difference between theater and film? And that's editing. Mm-hmm. Editing. Choosing what you're showing the audience and when. That's something that's really important. And what I found is that in games, if you're allowed to look around all over the place while there's a cutscene going on, a lot of times I'll miss something. I'll miss an important line of dialogue or an important action, and I'm off looking at books on the wall or some shit like that. So I think it'll be a combination. It'll be a combination of forced perspective editing to show you certain things, but then at the end of the scene or during parts of the scene, you can go and look at different things. You can pick.
It'd be a different experience. It would, and I wonder if movies would. I don't know. I wonder if like movies, like in a sense of forcing someone to follow the editing. Here's where I want your focus to be.
I don't know if movies would benefit from it.
Yeah, I don't know if they would just become very secondary. Whereas right now they're you could say movies are a mainstream form of entertainment, right? Like maybe the biggest one.
One of the biggest.
About to be overtaken by video games, if not they already have.
Yeah.
But I wonder if in 20, 30, 40, 50 years that they're going to be very just kind of fringe type things where people are more so doing these live immersive experiences where you follow things around or you're just acting everything out like in Star Trek.
I think that again has to be taken very much into consideration, is how your attention is directed, because of the things I just said, where again there's an important cutscene going on. There's two Marines talking about something, an alien colonial Marines, and then an alien jumps in and jumps on the guy's face. Oh, but I was off over here looking at weapons.
Yeah.
Like, I missed that. So there's a certain part of directing your attention that they're going to have to figure out how to handle.
Like you said, forced perspective.
Forced perspective, to some degree.
It'll be like certain games where you have cinematics and you no longer have control over your character, and you're essentially forced to watch this cutscene. After the fact, you have the ability to explore, grind, look around, take this out, go over here, do this, do that. But in the meantime, you are forced to view the important part of the scene. So it would be, like a forced perspective feel.
Yeah, I think Half-Life is one series that's really explored that pretty well, where the entire game is through your one perspective, and they never take you out and move you around and go move to the during a cutscene, they never move you around. You're always in your body looking around at whatever you want to look at.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like
that too.
Somehow it always worked out, though. I think they've maybe taken that into consideration really well and planned ahead for that.
I think they planned for it. And I think, again, it goes back to like they're trying to put you in an experience that it never take you out of it. Like, so long as you're playing the game, you are this character. This is the experience that you're going to have. There's some things that you can set. You can sort of break away and do this or that. This is the experience that we want you to feel, and to do that, and to never break character or to break the rules of the experience, we cannot let you leave this perspective, which is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant idea. It's a really good idea. Same thing when we choose to do a certain scene a certain way in film, and you commit to it. It's because this is the experience that I want you to have.
Yeah.
I think movies will have a hard time doing that.
In the traditional sense, how they do now.
As long as
they'll evolve, they'll have to evolve.
Somebody will have to innovate.
It'll be a generational thing, like what we always talk about. It'll be a generation of people that will remember what movies used to be like, and there'll be a new crop of people that will be experiencing a new type of film. So it may turn into, maybe like what Geoff said, 30, 40, 50 years. Essentially, maybe they'll mirror one another. Maybe video games and film will be one media market.
Real close.
And, now we'll come from a place of, we remember when it was just the visual experience of watching a movie and we had the option to either play the game or watch the movie. Whereas other people will look at it and go, God, that seems so antiquated and archaic to me, because now I can play this movie game. I can play this movie game, you know? So I think it's a generational thing. It would be just over filtering out the generations of who aren't used to it versus to who are, you know, introduced to it at a very young age.
Yeah.
It just comes to them naturally. Like, oh, well, I was playing Goonies when I was 7 years old. I didn't watch it. You know, I was one of the characters in Goonies, and you're going, wow, I just got to watch it. That sucks.
Yeah, I got the experience. Like, this game/experience was Goonies, and it was just me and 3 other friends, and we did this in this world. Like, I didn't do the same thing you guys did. Like, I don't know, how'd you find that sword?
Yeah.
We didn't find a sword when we went through it. Did we need to go through the game again?
Yeah. Did you guys ever watch a lot of Star Trek where they would talk about the holodeck?
I didn't.
Like, the coolest thing that I thought, and I could just kind of jumping into that with combining some of the stuff we just talked about, some of these ideas.
Now, was the holodeck on Next Generation, or was it on the first Star Trek?
It was on Next Generation.
Okay.
And what you could do is, it would almost be like, they would call them chapters, but it was almost like if you had a book and you would be living out the book. You'd go into the holodeck and you'd be playing a character and just kind of playing through the motions. And what I liked about that is like, but when you still want to have the bonding experience. So I just started thinking of in the future, and this would be exciting, and you would still be very organic and you could evolve with it. But imagine like me and you, Jason, decide we're going to play Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And so what we could do is suddenly like, like one of us is Watson, one of us is Sherlock Holmes, whatever. And, you know, chapter 2, we're in our place and we're checking it out, looking around. All we know is it's not so much that everything is so pre-scripted, because we can sit here and talk and share different ideas, but maybe what we have to do is convince a character who's going to come in here that we're the people who are going to help them. So we could fail. We could joke around way too much and get way off script, and in a sense that person might go like, what are you guys doing, and just leave. Yeah. Or, you know, like, we got to restart that scene. Come on, we got to, we were screwing around. We got to, you know, somehow convince this guy that we're the guys who can help him with whatever he's got going on, and start playing it out like a book that way, like, or moving through the scenes that way. And so you still have this sense of there's like, you can have like a director presence of how the story has to flow and where you're going in the story. But if you deviate, almost now, where if you go off in the game and you're going out of bounds, what happens? You can't go further. You can't go out this door. You can't do anything. So we might not be able to open the door to continue the story until we convince so-and-so, however we do it, that we're so we got to figure it out. So it's almost a little bit like a game, like problem solving, right? But it's still entertainment, and you can have fun, and you're sharing it with another person. You might not even look like you. I mean, if we're fully immersive holodeck, like augmented VR, you could almost look like, would be really cool, is imagine you look like you, but a version of you mixed with your character.
That'd be pretty sick.
Like, it's like almost like a blending like of the faces. So it's like I can still recognize you. Like if I were to like, and then if it was totally VR, like think like World of Warcraft, like maybe me and you were playing out a game, but then I see him like, dude, that guy looks like Kholi over there. And it's like he's doing his own story, and like I can tell, like, 'cause, like I can see like, okay, they've blended. It kind of looks like him mixed with that you know, dude who looks like he's running around with a bow and arrow. What's the guy I'm thinking of?
Legolas?
No, the Assassin's Creed dude, you know, or something like that. Like running around, like, and I'm like, okay, he's off doing his own thing, but I can recognize him. I don't know, like I just
Ezio, Altair,
I can just imagine that. Like it's so like you can have so much fun with that.
Hell yeah, man, that'd be great. I mean, you would, you know, again, going off of Kholi's, you know, the co-op thing. Human beings are always looking for connection, I think, as well. And now that when you mix the interactivity of connecting with a product or connecting with a moment, and then you include other people in that with you, I mean, how awesome would it have been if you could have played Final Fantasy VII co-op? Like somebody could be Vincent Valentine and somebody could be Cloud Strife. Oh man, you know, or somebody could be Tiffy and somebody could be Eris up until the point she died. But you know, you would have that experience. It'd be like you guys reading a book together or watching a movie together and going, oh, you know, this is awesome. Like Gears of War 3 was the first game I played where you could play 4-player co-op. And that was pretty intense because now you've just doubled the 2 to 4 now, and you've got people giving you ammo when you're low on ammo. You know, you're in cover behind something and, you know, you're out of ammo and you're using a little pistol, but your buddy's got plenty of Lancer rifle ammo and he's blasting over the top, and then he runs over and gives you some ammo. Before, you would have to rely on the AI to be smart enough to come over and do these things. So now it becomes even more personal when you're like, oh, dude, thanks for helping me out, man. I was pinned down over there.
And then he shoots you and takes your stuff.
Yeah. Friendly fire's off. Friendly fire's off, by the way.
He takes your gun. I think you got to go soon, huh? You're yeah?
Yeah, we should wrap it up in the next 10 minutes.
Okay. So anyway, I think that the more I think about it now, I had never really considered this. I think Geoff might have a really solid point. Like where does the very young but still kind of old movie industry fit into the changing technology? And I think the movie industry recognizes that it doesn't. It has to find a place already with the way things are changing. Like we now don't just consume on the big screen on television. We consume on iPads. We consume on phones, everything like that, and soon watches. Which sounds really weird to me, but and maybe the cinema industry doesn't have a place in that, and maybe it still exists, like you say, as a fringe property, like something that you actually whip out a TV or a phone or something like to watch, and it's like, cool, that was my hour and a half of watching a movie, and now I'm gonna get back to like doing my work or playing like something that I can actually experience. I
can't imagine if just like, and I always go into the holodeck because I got to go as far as I can think with it, but just it's no different from playing Gears of War. Like if we were playing Gears of War 3 in a holodeck where we're stuck in chapter 28, and it's because we haven't figured out yet, even with like maybe 7 of us all logged in all around the world, playing into a virtual environment that is almost, you can't even distinguish between, like it feels real for the time that you're in this game. And we can't figure out how to get past this one barricade first. Like, like, oh, they just keep coming. We don't know what we have to do to, like, progress to the next level. I just can't imagine comparing that level of entertainment and immersion and, like, the bonding experience and how much fun that could be. I just can't imagine it to who wants to sit on a couch and watch a show.
Yeah. Completely.
Or watch somebody else. Like, anything you watch, I would just go, how can we translate this to the, immersive holodeck VR augmented reality world? Like anything. Avengers, any big show, especially Hollywood. Because anything Hollywood does, for the most part, is big movie stuff. That's where most of their money is invested into creating big franchises for superheroes and bigger things that you, for the most part, you can't do like cheaply, right?
Right.
So maybe cheap stuff like dramas or independent dramas. I still think like you'll have to experience that the same way people you still enjoy photography.
Or you still read books.
You still read books. So I think they'll still be there, but they're not going to be this.
They're things that you do.
They're going
to
change.
Yeah. You just I'm going to bed. I want to read a book. In movies, like I'm going to bed, I put on a movie and just fall asleep, like that sort of thing.
A movie might be something, just like right now, an author can write a book and I would almost use the escape of, if I have an idea for a science fiction story, I don't have $100 million to go employ lots of people for their labor to convert this into a movie that we can all share, right? But I can go sit with a laptop in a coffee shop and write for 10 months. Well, imagine we have holodecks in the future. Now, we're all busy constantly playing cool experiences out and bonding all the time, doing all this stuff. But if you wanted to, you might be able to just go in your own holodeck like a writer with a book used to and comparatively construct a movie. So if I wanted to retell Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, I could go in my own holodeck and I could, like a writer, just play out all the characters and film everything in a sense of recording all the action and then creating a movie out of it. But it would be almost something I could do in my spare time. By myself.
Yeah.
For other people
one of the
to
things
enjoy.
that you just sort of do in your spare time, like you said, fringe.
Yeah.
It's like just something I do. I think, just my last thing, I think that once someone establishes a paradigm for like this Oculus Rift thing or like the experience, still video game, not augmented reality, but a video game where you're interacting with people, I think once someone figures out a way to create a very expansive world that is only populated by creatures, which would be NPCs, and structures, buildings, and then materials to build structures. Okay, that's like the base of it. I think once we have like the Oculus Rift first person, and we have this world that is there to build upon, and people are just dropping in and claiming areas, claiming land.
Look at Minecraft.
Was that Minecraft?
Or Diamond Age.
There you go.
I love Minecraft.
There you go. No, Minecraft is I haven't played Diamond Age, but I know what Minecraft is. Once you get Minecraft in the body of Uncharted with the dynamics of World of Warcraft, That's it.
That's
Dude,
it.
it's like
That's-
Snow
it's
Crash.
done.
Did you ever read Snow Crash?
I didn't read
think
Snow
it's Snow
Crash.
Crash, where there's a virtual environment where people put on goggles, and it's the equivalent of the internet, but people have space. They have, where they have land. It's like Second Life on steroids.
Right.
But you put on the goggles, and then once you're in there, this is this is my house here in the virtual world, and I have this virtual car, and these are the things I do, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's a really good book.
Yeah, that it'll be done. Second, I know what Second Life is, and I've actually messed around with Second Life because you sort of want in video games, you sort of want to know what's going on. I think Second Life's like the reason why Second Life is not that type of thing that I'm talking about. It's because you're still segregated. They're still trying. They're still.
And the game engine isn't.
Yeah, the game engine is very like it's
very simple.
Yeah, it's basically like a chat based thing.
Yeah.
But you're still separated. Like you still have to like teleport to different places and everything like that. When you can just do what Jason loves to do in Red Dead Redemption and ride a horse into a different like part of the country, that is where it is. That's what's gonna happen. And I think the catalyst to that is like Oculus Rift. It is something where you're experiencing it first person. Like I can look down and look at the horse and it's got like flies and shit. And then you get off this horse because it's got flies and shit.
And it transforms into a fighter jet.
Yeah, fighter jet horse with the horse head on the front. They'll still making noises.
The last thing I can think of with this is the one thing we really didn't touch on, but I think it would definitely be something that would happen is how would society change? How would human interactions change with one another? Would we be more secluded? Would we be, I don't know if you guys ever saw Surrogates with Bruce Willis.
Yeah, definitely.
I liked the movie. I thought it was good. And I enjoyed how they had this this built society around people just not wanting to be who they were anymore. They wanted to live through their surrogate bodies. Going off what you guys just said there, living in this world of Warcraft, with Minecraft, with Uncharted, with this, Second Life dropped in, ability to have this virtual environment that you have space in. Why would I want to be me when I can be on some badass penthouse in Malibu, with my 16 Lamborghinis and
that's what people
driving them off the roof.
I'm going over the top with it, but I'm just saying, why would I want to be me then? Like, would we have a crash in psychological development with people stating, look, I don't like
we already
who I
have
am
that.
now.
We already have
and
that.
that's what I'm saying. We already have that on a very low level now with people not wanting to even interact, and they're being very socially inept.
So you're saying, is it going to get worse? Or is it going to get better?
It's a question. I think it's a good question that would come up. Like, what would happen to the human element, the social interaction of just the human condition of going out and meeting people? Would you do that anymore? Would it all be virtual?
Can you get laid doing that?
Dude, I bet you probably could. I bet you probably could.
Yeah, at some point.
I bet you there'd be a patch. I bet you there'd be a patch
I was thinking the
for
same
it.
thing. Like,
you meet a girl or a guy or whatever you're into on the
or
game.
You think
and
it's a guy.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
I think that'll keep me away from doing that.
Yeah, but
It's
no,
like
it would be a patch, or it'd be like the deluxe version, or you'd buy, that like there'd be certain things you would buy into, because think about it, again, commerce drives a lot of things. So, they'd sell you the base package. And by the way, if you want to be the baller, we'll give you this package. If you want to be this guy, you can buy into these certain different experiences. I don't know. I think it would change a lot of things. I mean, they're already talking about how younger generations are more, that they're having harder times communicating with one another because they have so much technology at their fingertips now. They don't go out and interact with a lot of other kids because they're texting and they're messaging, and like instead they're just not talking to one another. So I don't know. I think it would change. I think a lot of human interaction would change.
Yeah.
Some would be sort of something to think about. That sounds scary.
Yeah,
it sounds a little frightening. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good show. Thanks for joining us, Kholi.
Kholi, thank you, sir.
Yeah, that was good. Again, it's like I feel like an hour and a half isn't enough sometimes, but thanks for listening to us, everyone.
Peace out.
laptops and desktops, I would go in and replace motherboards that had burnt out GPUs and video cards all the time for people that would essentially game for 8 to 10 hours a day. And then I also met a kid one time who he was what they called a seeder, where he would build up characters for people and then sell them on eBay. He would seed people with characters. So like, let's say you didn't have the time to play, right? But you wanted to play. You wanted to play with a
but you want to have like
exactly. You want to have character. Yeah, you want to have a good guy to play with. So like, but you work fucking 50 hours a week, so you're like, I can't work 50 and play 50. So this guy would build up characters. I don't know, what do they have, like wizards, barbarians, maidens, something like that. He would build these things up and sell them for as much as $200 to $500 on eBay. And you essentially would just give them, like, when you build this character, you would give them like access, like an access code, so that when they would load up the game, they could load up this profile. And I mean, that's all this kid did for 14, 16 hours a day. Played World of Warcraft, seeded the public with characters. That was it.
Wow.
So there's, I mean, right there, there's a demand. You know, there's a demand for people that want video games that just don't have the time. They want to enjoy the experience of getting on there and not having to build it up. Now, some people might not like that, though, because they want to like have the challenge of building up their character and going around and grinding, dungeon grinding, doing whatever it is. But other folks are like, look, I want to slap it in and go to work.
I feel like as you get more and more into this realm of like the Matrix or like a holodeck, that becomes more and more likely that more people are going to get like crack addicted to these games. Or what's that game? There's like this there's this like show, is it, I don't know if it's like an anime thing or whatever, but there's like a character who's like a kid who always wears goggles, and his goggles connect him to the internet or something like that, and he's like always on board a spacecraft or something. It was like some kind of like cowboy sci-fi show. And, oh crap, I don't know. Remember it for.
I think I know the image you're talking about. I've seen it on Reddit a couple times.
Yeah, and it's like he's got these goggles on. Well, there's that planet where there's an image on Reddit where some artist mocked it up, but it's like this. It looks like a guy who's recovering from, like a drug addiction or something. He's like hauled up in a corner and he's got these goggles on, and they're just like glowing on his face, and it's just like he's stuck in this like VR reality.
Yeah,
I totally see that happening.
I've seen that before.
Where you just become so desensitized to the real world, where it becomes more real for you to live in your goggles in this little like can you
just
I can totally
think
imagine
about
that.
Just think about it this way. Again, going back to World of Warcraft, if somebody came out with a headset that put your computer monitor right up to your eyeballs and you plugged your headphones in and like the one device you wore, exactly what you're talking about is what would be happening right now.
Well, that's Oculus Rift. Oculus Rift.
Yeah, that VR, like, isn't it 3D stereoscopic eyeglasses?
It is 3D stereoscopic, and it's a headset. You put the headset on, and it's in a way you're basically transported into whatever world the game provides.
Yeah.
But there's still, here's my thing with virtual reality and where it exists right now. There's still a lack of tactile experience with virtual reality, which is why I don't really like the concept. It's like, okay, cool. Reality is based around a tactile experience with people around you, objects around you, and the world around you. But virtual reality as it stands now, sitting in a chair and wearing a helmet is not necessarily virtual reality. It may be virtually, man, I don't even know a term for it, but you're watching. You're still
only
watching.
two.
It's still visual. It's still visual reality. It's still not
audio.
virtual reality.
So you're hijacking two senses. You got your
it's
5 primary
only two.
senses, but you're hijacking 2.
That's a really good way to put it. You're hijacking two senses or satisfying the experience through two senses, which is sight and sound.
Did you see the thing where they talked about like when the guy put it on and he has him stand under the water that's dripping, because he starts to feel as if like he can feel it because his mind is making it real.
Right.
Because those senses are so strong that they bleed a little into your other senses where like they have those like psychology experiments where they'll put like your hand through a piece of glass window, so you think it's your hand, and they'll be touching your real hand. And then what they do is, when you're not paying attention, they swap out your hand with like a rubber hand.
Right.
And then they start touching it, and you start reacting as if, because you're so convinced that that's your hand.
Yeah.
So even though you're not being touched, your mind makes it real.
What that was is it was like somebody sitting at a table, and there was like a wall they put up.
This is the construct. It's our loading program. We can load anything from clothing to equipment, weapons, training simulations, anything we need.
Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different, the plugs in your arms and head are gone. Your hair has changed. Your appearance now is what we call residual self-image. It is the mental projection of your digital self.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Let's jump right into it, shall we?
We should.
How is the landscape of entertainment changing with the advent of more interactivity with video games, 3D applications in film, more home advances with home entertainment systems being able to offer the 3D experience, whether it be through watching movies, TV, sporting events, playing video games? How is that going to change things? How is that going to make the user either more a part of something, or is it going to essentially create a new form of entertainment for people? You know, will people start to feel that they are immersed in more of an experience, or will they start to pull away? Good question.
Well, I wonder, because you have games like World of Warcraft, I think it is, right, where people get so into it that they don't even want to be in real life anymore, right? Isn't that the game?
Yeah.
And that I could see that being, yeah, if people wanted to, they could go to that extreme and completely negate their entire life and just be in the game.
Well, people already do that. Like, there's people who seriously like live and do nothing but play Warcraft. Like, they don't even like leave their homes. Like, that's all they do. They play that game and like live in their parents' basement until they're 50 years old.
They game hardcore. When I used to work on PCs, laptops,
halfway, right between halfway through you. So what, like your left arm was on one side of this little cardboard wall, and your right hand was on the other side. And I think the trick was, again, is they actually tricked you to make you think the fake arm coming from where your right arm would be it made you think that was your arm. And then the way they set it up,
your brain would process that information and make it real, because you're seeing it with your real eyes, so you have to, like, you start to get there. And I wonder if you did that with the Oculus Rift, like, in a sense of, if you were to play it long enough, like right now you have all these people who are just playing it for a little bit, right? And it's just like the Matrix, when he's like, oh, the mind makes it real. And I'm not saying people are going to die playing the Oculus Rift.
I hope not.
They start shaking in their chair, and then they fall over with blood coming out of their eye.
But if you were to play that game for a really, really long time, would you get to that point where suddenly you're really getting into it, and it starts to become more and more real, where you're starting to, those additional sensory inputs start to bleed even more into your traditional ones and like overtake them? I don't know.
I think you make a good point that the audio and visual senses are strong enough to sort of bleed into the other, but there will always be a disconnect still that disallows you to really become that submerged within another world that still doesn't look like your world. At the end of the day, you still have to take the glasses off, and you still have to come back to the experience that is real life. So without being able to literally get up, walk around in a space and experience the virtual world, you still never fully connect to it, which is pretty interesting, because you think that if you sat in goggles for 6 or 7 hours and experienced like this pixel-based world, that would become like this. That's like, okay, cool, this is reality. But as far as the human mind goes, you're still processing what the reality is around you. And the example of that is when you see these guys using the Oculus Rift, and the guy who's showing the system to them is standing right behind them. They're always still aware of where this guy is, even though he's not talking. Like, and you hear him comment, it's like, oh, you're right behind me, but this is really weird because when I turn around, I don't see you. But I know, like, my mind is still processing that You're literally right here. And so when you say something too, there's a disconnect in the space because, I turn around, but you're not there. This is really weird. So it's strange because you're still existing in two worlds, and the world that you actually exist in is still your primary. So you can never really exist in that virtual world.
What if they just merged? Like imagine this. Picture this. Imagine an Oculus Rift in the future that was like a transparent headset. And this goes into, what is that?
It's augmented reality.
Augmented reality. Right. But this goes into, though, also like the nature of reality and how your brain makes reality. Like outside of here, nothing exists. Like my eyes are no different from like the way the Oculus Rift is obtaining information and then converting it into pixels and creating a reality is no different from the way my brain is. It's receiving visible light and receiving the frequencies of sound and touch and all these other kind of things and creating a virtual reality in my mind. It's like creating like a holographic reality, right? So if you start to merge these things, almost like augmented VR, you could be walking around with headsets and you could be interacting with characters and interacting with things that aren't even there in the real world, but they start to become like seamlessly blended by your mind, by your brain, like in the future, like creating these things. So you almost could have a society where everybody is equivalent to like a paranoid schizophrenic because they're interacting with like their own, like, like now you have like they have a desktop like interactions. Like you could have like a character on your desktop who's like interacting with you, like almost like a little virtual guide or something. Imagine that in the future where you have your own virtual guide and everybody, just imagine like a bunch of people just walking around like talking with people who aren't even there because they're interacting with like AIs or virtual beings that only they can see.
That already happens with Bluetooth headsets.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
For those of us who don't know, what is Oculus Rift? I've never heard of that.
The Oculus Rift is... Kholi knows what it is.
It's a video game peripheral made by these guys here in California, actually.
Oh, so it's an accessory.
It's an accessory, and they're building for the PlayStation consoles and computer consoles. It's basically an add-on, so you can sort of sit within whatever 3D world that you're in. So the demo right now runs with, what's the Dragons game? Really popular.
Dragon Age? Or no, Skyrim?
Skyrim. Yeah, the demo's running with Skyrim.